Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Ballabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamunatira Vanachadi Jamunatira Vanachadi Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Nishtapad Paramahamsa Anivedagacharya Astatarasatasi Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Gaur Premanandi Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya We're continuing this morning with Canto 10, Chapter 36. We started yesterday, the very first verse, introducing Aristasura into Vraja. And we're going to continue, starting with text 2, 10:36-2. Translation. Aristasura bellowed very harshly and pawed the ground with his tail raised and his eyes glaring. He began to tear up the embankments with the tips of his horns, every now and then passing a little stool and urine. Pretty graphic. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, roaring very loudly and roughly, he clawed the earth with his hooves. You've seen bulls do that. He dug out the bank. Embankment, the bank. It's not uncommon in Vrindavan. There's a path, and along the side of the path, there's something either side, left and right. So his horns were removing that embankment. He dug out the bank with his horns and passed stool. Jiva Goswami. He made furrows in the earth with his hooves as he tore up the soil because of his crazed condition and desire to fight. Text 3 and 4. Translation. My dear king, clouds hovered about sharp-horned Aristasura's hump, mistaking it for a mountain, meaning he was really big. And when the cowherd men and ladies caught sight of the demon, they were struck with terror. Indeed, the strident reverberation of his roar so frightened the pregnant cows and women that they lost their fetuses in miscarriages. The word in the Sanskrit is sma. That's miscarriage. Garbha, sma. Purport. Short. The Vedic literature categorizes miscarriages as follows, and it's repeated in the commentary below. Up to the 4th month, a premature delivery is called Shrava. In the 5th and 6th months, it is called Pata, and after this it is considered a birth. Prasuti. Vishwanath Chakravarti says the same. Due to the loud roaring, the cows and women had miscarriages up to the 4th month. Miscarriage is called Shrava, and in the 5th and 6th month, miscarriage is called Pata. Jiva Goswami writes, the great fear caused by the demon is described. His roaring seemed to crush Vraja. Shukadev calls out to Parikshit with fear. Just talking about it, he felt. Sma indicates that it was well known. Of course, that's Jiva Goswami's rendering of the word sma is different than the word for word. Sma indicates that it was well known, and vai means certainly. The word maha, mentioned previously, indicates his size. He had a huge hump upon which the cloud, mistaking it for a mountain, rested. This is a metaphor, since the cloud is unconscious. His hump and a mountain were both high, reaching the clouds. What to speak of the women, who are easily frightened by nature? The men were also terrified. So then Jiva Goswami doesn't give the scriptural reference, but there's a long Sanskrit text, a few of them. And so apparently it's a translation from something. I guess Vishnu Purana, because Vishnu Purana discusses the same pastime. So here's the translation. He had a complexion of a cloud and had sharp horns and eyes blazing like the sun. He repeatedly licked his lips with sound. He twirled his tail in pride. His shoulders were tough, and his hump was huge and impossible to pass over. His body was smeared with urine and stool. He caused panic in the cows. Skin hung from his throat. His face was scarred by being hit by trees. He always wandered in the forest to attack the sages doing austerities. Don't run into that guy. The commentary reads, the people had to look upwards, udvishya, to see him, since he was so huge. The animals were frightened because of his evil nature. Then again, long text, Sanskrit and translation. The demon, named Arishta, killer of bulls and enemy of the cows, was with frightful form and with huge horns for fighting, ran around Gokula. He made the cows abort and become barren. He wandered through the village, breaking everything. With anger, he attacked the cows with his horns. He was not satisfied, since he could not fight. Then commentary, short. The demon had not come to Vraja up to this time because Kamsa had not permitted him. Now we're moving on to text 5. The domestic animals fled the pasture in fear, O king, and all the inhabitants rushed to Lord Govinda for shelter, crying, Krishna, Krishna, twice. Right, Krishna, Krishneti, te sarve. Jiva Goswami, commentary. The animals left Vraja, though they should not have done so in the evening, out of great fear. They were pursued by the demon as they fled. Shukadev calls out to Parikshit in astonishment at what happened, or from fear. They called out to Krishna, who was called Govinda because he had been enthroned as the king of Gokula with that name. Thus they took shelter of him. They approached him as he was coming from Govardhan, where there was a place for the rasa dance. Because remember, the time is twilight. Okay. Because he heard the commotion, they shouted only his name, since they could say nothing else out of great fear. This was how they all acted. And Jiva Goswami, even the cows shouted Krishna's name. It is said that when Surabhi came, her offspring addressed her. No explanation of what that means. Text 6. When the Supreme Lord saw the cowherd community distraught and fleeing in fear, he calmed them, saying, "Don't be afraid. Then he called out to the bull demon as follows. Jiva Goswami's commentary. Govinda, however, acted differently. Seeing all beings of Gokula, whom he should protect, he spoke to the demon, Vrishasuram. He knew that the bull was a demon. He called the demon towards him. Going far from Vraja, so that he would not cause disturbance in Vraja. Later it will be said that Krishna entered Vraja after killing the demon, verse 15 of this chapter. And we're on text 6. Moving to text 7, this will end our reading. Krishna said, "You fool! What do you think you're doing, you wicked rascal, frightening the cowherd community and their animals, when I am here just to punish corrupt miscreants like you?" Duratmanam, miscreants, and Dushtanam, contaminated. Vishwanath writes, quote, "What do you gain by frightening the cows?" Addressing the demon as the most sinful one, Asatama, Krishna suggests that no sin would be incurred by killing the bull, though normally cows and bulls should not be killed. Jiva Goswami writes, Krishna's words to the demon are described. The cows are the main entities that should not be frightened, since they have less intelligence and strength than their protectors, the cowherds. In the last paragraph, "You are a fool, Manda, since you are frightening animals. There will be no result from frightening these animals and their protectors." And Rishta's response, "Why do you say this?" Reply, "I am the punisher of evil persons like you. I am the destroyer of strength and fear in persons having wicked acts, dushtanam, and wicked minds, duratmanam. When I kill you, everyone will be without fear. You are this type of person, tad vidhanam, to be punished. Even one who imitates the behavior of the wicked should be punished." Arishta, "But I have the form of a bull. How can I be punished?" Krishna's reply, "You are the worst, Asatama. You are not a bull, but actually a demon in disguise." And we'll continue tomorrow morning with text 8. It doesn't give the statement Krishna was the king of the cowherds, because Nanda Maharaj was the king of the cowherds, but he is his son, so one could say he's the successor king or something. But even in his name-giving ceremony, Krishna's interest in protecting the cows was foretold, and thus names were given, ascribed by Gargamuni accordingly. And Krishna showed that nature, of course, it's who he is. He's an eternal Gopal, protector of cows. We heard from chapter 11, as soon as Krishna went to Vraja, and he was just 3 years old, but he and Balaram were just fascinated with being with the cows and so many things we heard. He just wanted to be with the cows. And being with the cows means protecting the cows. And this is Krishna's nature. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitayacha Jagatitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Krishna is worshipped in this way, as this verse tells us. He is very dear to the cows and the brahmanas. He's dear to them, they're dear to him. He protects them. And those who abide by the principles of what Krishna does, they're assisting Krishna and they're protected. So this is the cowherd community. And Arishta is, of all things, disturbing the cows, who Krishna is the protector of. What to speak of then the Vrajbasis. So he's in big trouble. Now we hear in the earlier verses of this section, he just wanted to fight. And he couldn't find, chasing cows. The cows aren't going to fight. So he was frustrated. So Krishna took care of his frustration. He gave him a fight. And that's what Krishna does. And those who are devotees of Krishna, they may, if you're a Kshatriya, like Arjuna, you may fight. And if you're not, you take shelter of those who are Kshatriyas. And if there aren't Kshatriyas, that's a problem. And then you have animal civilization, where people that don't have those principles of cow protection and Brahminical culture, they're animals. And they do what animals do. Woof, woof. And that's the civilization that we have. As sophisticated education and the fruits of education may be in the form of technology and philosophy and this and that, without Brahminical culture and cow protection, and look around, cow protection. I was taking notice during, the beginning stages of COVID, how shops were just empty, except for one, the burger places. And there were long lines of people because no cow protection. They protect their bodies, but not protect the cows. So it's an animal civilization. It's not human civilization. And here comes Arista, in the form of a bull, giving harassment to the cows. Doesn't specifically mention the bulls, but mentions the cows and miscarriages and loud noise and humongous body. The people had to look up. This guy was really big. My memory is going to a visit one time. I was in Italy. I think the place is called Villa Vrindavan. And it used to be a vineyard, and they ripped out all the grape vines, and it became pasture and ground. I think they regretted they ripped out the because they could have had pasturing ground somewhere. But anyways, so the temple is up on a hill, and you walk down a slope, and at the bottom of the hill was this. I couldn't think, as soon as I saw the guy, I thought of Aristasura, that he was really huge, and he was pawing the ground, and he was snorting, big horns, eyes, bloodshot, fortunately in a safe, secure pen. And it's not like because he saw us, he became agitated. He just is always agitated. pawing the ground and snorting and, the bellowing. Mini Ishtasura, a little guy compared to Ishtasura. So how fearful it must have been for the Brijbasis. And Krishna is the protector of them, protector of rabbinical culture, protector of cows, protector of the residents of Vrindavan. This is chapter 36, and there's reference again and again to the Govardhan Lila, when, of course, it was precipitated by Krishna's asking Nanda Maharaj to stop the Indra Yagya. But when the Indra Yagya was stopped and Indra became irritated and did what he did, Krishna then began to consider, I've taken a vow. I must protect the residents of Vrindavan. I mean, he wasn't having a conversation, just described Krishna thought like this. So again and again that verse is repeated because he is the protector from Bhagavad Gita. Pritranaya sadhunam, he's the protector of sadhus, and especially amongst the sadhus, he's the protector of the Brijbasis and the cows. It's his nature anyway, and especially the Brijbasis and the cows. And he loved the cows. The cows loved him. Interesting. Even the cows called out Krishna's name. Who knows what that sounded like? And Krishna appeared. What happens when you call Krishna's name? No delay. Not, okay, here I come. Krishna's there. That's our teaching. Krishna is within his name. And Krishna's form came upon calling Krishna's name to protect the Brijbasis and protect the cows. And this is the understanding of Brahminical culture. I mean, I'll say a couple things about Brahminical culture. The first canto is filled with discussions about Brahminical culture. And then there's levels of Brahminical culture, but minimally, Brahmana means one who knows Brahman. Brahmana deti Brahmana. So a Brahmana must know Brahman. And so then Brahman means, there's different understandings of what Brahman means. But minimally, Brahman means we belong to the realm of spirit, we're not this body. And those who are directed by those who have that understanding, that's Brahminical culture. There may be Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, guided by the Brahmanas, that's Brahminical culture, knowing I'm not this body, I am Brahman. They may not have the fullness of realization, they may or may not. But that's the beginning of Brahminical culture. And then continuing further, Brahminical culture means Paramatma and then Bhagavan. So that's Brahminical culture. We're meant to become qualified brahmanas to guide society. Qualified brahmanas in the Krishna Bhakti sense means Vaishnavas. We're meant to be Brahmana Vaishnavas. Now, somebody may be a gardener. You remember that gardener story? I narrated that on Sunday. Vyasatirtha story, the gardener. So he received initiation eventually, once the born Brahmana followers got over, the liking that Vyasatirtha had for him. He showed in multiple ways his qualification, his devotional qualification. Madashraya, that's Brahminical culture. Someone remember Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, text 1? I asked this the other day. Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 7, Text 1. Maya sakta mana. Maya sakta mana. When the mind is asakti, is attached to me, yogam yunjan madashraya. So madashraya means shelter in Krishna, or shelter in one who has shelter in Krishna. Madashraya, and those who have madashraya, they're protected by Krishna. They're under a different energy, that's the internal energy by madashraya. So that's Brahminical culture. And we're meant to be like that. We're meant to know the scriptures and live by them. And by knowing the scriptures and living by them, serve as Brahmana Vaishnavas. Whatever one may be a gardener, but one may be whatever one is. Live our lives accordingly. And that's doing so and speaking the message, of course, appropriate to time, place, circumstance. That's the Sankirtan movement of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's the means of our purification. Appropriate amongst the devotees and appropriate amongst the non-devotees, but that's our life. Maya sakta manak partha yogam yunjan madashraya. So amongst devotees, we're discussing Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, now specifically Arishtasura, and taking shelter of Krishna when Aristasuras come along. Maybe not, gigantic like he was, with the hump on his back so tall that a cloud in the sky was hovering around, as if he was thinking, oh, this is a mountain peak. That's not why clouds hover around mountain peaks. Oh, this is my place. I'm going to hang out over here. There's some other principles involved, but Krishna to the rescue. We take shelter of Krishna to protect us from such forces, the Arishtasura forces. And a correction, I made a mistake the other day, said this evening we're going to be speaking. So now it's this evening we're going to be speaking more about the Vyomasura and this demon, that demon, and what anartha they represent in Krishna's eradication of obstacles on the path of bhakti. So we'll hear that this evening. See if there's any discussion.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Like you are saying, like when we are hearing about the demons, is it my understanding right? Like how the residents and they took the shelter. So like when we are hearing these pastimes, is it that like we are learning from them? Like when we have obstacles or things, this is how we take shelter of Krishna? Or
your understanding is right, and I'll add to your understanding. Should I?
Yes.
There's potency just in hearing the pastime. that helps remove these types of obstacles. Supposing there's a child and they don't understand what you just said.
Yeah.
Oh, now I understand I should take shelter of Krishna when obstacles come. But the other is also there, just by hearing the pastime, and hearing it again and again, the obstacle is diminished just through that sound vibration. There's potency within the sound vibration. Isn't that nice?
Very nice.
You don't have to be scholarly. You just have to hear.
And they're very sweet too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, and then as that cleansing and uplifting of consciousness goes on, then consciousness has more of a discerning capacity, and then one can understand, oh, this is what I should do when some danger comes. So a little child may come to understand that, and then it becomes part of culture because they've heard from childhood. And then it's just second nature. And then further into adulthood, they can understand more about the nature and protectiveness of Krishna, and I want to stay in Krishna's shelter, Madashraya. Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
So does that apply with recordings as well? Just the sound vibration of something, if you play it from your phone, or
Like what?
if you play a lecture from your phone, and does the sound vibration still have the same effect?
Sure. I mean, let's say Bhagavad Gita. I just heard a recording of Prabhupada speaking like this. When Bhagavad Gita is narrated, please understand, he was appealing to the audience, Krishna is personally there. Just by hearing the sound vibration, Sri Bhagavan Vacha, Krishna is there, speaking. He said, just as I am here in front of you speaking, Krishna is speaking in front of you. I mean, we don't have that realization. But from the absolute perspective, that's the reality. Pretty nice. Okay? Nothing. Okay. Yes, sure.
It's not on the topic, but just
Sure.
no, just wanted to ask Maharaj, if an exalted Vaishnava is departing this world, what is kind of a prayer is appropriate, as small as I am? What kind of a prayer can I offer for that Vaishnava?
Well, you have a relationship with Krishna, and Krishna has a relationship with that elevated Vaishnava's soul. So you offer your heartfelt prayer to Krishna, including in the prayer your appeal to Krishna to give protection and shelter, whatever, to the departed soul. No, we're tiny and quite insignificant. Nonetheless, we have a relationship with Krishna, so we offer, according to our relationship and our consciousness, such a prayer.
The reason I was asking, recently, Bhakticharya Maharaj was departing, and
Yes.
and I was praying like that, and then I was feeling like I'm too small, and he's already there. So, I mean, what kind of a prayer am I offering?
Yes, you're small and he's already there, and you still offer the prayer. Okay. Because it's the well-wishing of however big or medium or small one is. It's the well-wishing. And then the address goes to Krishna to give shelter to this exalted soul. Okay. You have something? Okay.
This is from Archana Vaidya Mataji. What is the main cause a grahastha not feeling attraction to leave the present occupation?
Could you take the mask off so I can hear you better?
Sorry, Maharaj.
Thanks.
What is the main cause a grahastha not feeling attraction to leave the present occupation and be with Krishna, even if Krishna himself is calling?
Even if?
Krishna himself is calling. And is it attachment to family or some fear or something else?
Well, if I've understood the question correctly, what she's asking is like what Arjuna is asking. And Krishna's answer to Arjuna is, no, don't give up your prescribed duty. Perform your prescribed duty. And always think of me. So you stay within your position. That's another text. Stane statakshutikatam tanavan manobir. I suggest that she looks at that verse. It's Rupa Goswami, Ramananda Roy suggested that verse to Lord Chaitanya as the goal of life and the means to achieve it. So read the verse, read the commentary, get really clear. It's not recommended by Krishna in Bhagavad Gita or Lord Brahma and Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to do as she's suggesting. Stay in your position, perform prescribed duty, and cultivate attachment for Krishna that way. In due course of time, as one's Krishna consciousness matures, you have completed your occupational duties and family duties, etc., and you can move in the direction of, but one may move in the direction of preaching instead of going and living in the holy dham or something like that. Just make your Krishna connection stronger now in your present circumstance. That's the main message. Okay, Prabhupada ki jai.